Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rawkode Live. I'm your host Rawkode. Today is Clustered, but slightly different. Today is Clustered Newcomers Edition. I have broken a Kubernetes cluster in a few ways to aim and hopefully provide a journey for people that aren't as long in the tooth in the Kubernetes landscape, that want to understand some of the more primitive aspects, basics, and I don't know, a whole bunch of other stuff. It's really hard to break a cluster when the people have no idea. So we're going to see how it goes. Now, before we get started, I want to encourage you all to please subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the bell. This will get you notifications for all future episodes of Rawkode Live and Clustered. And of course, if you want to talk about cloud native Kubernetes and anything in between, please join us in the Discord server. All right, now joining me today, I have Jeremy, Jason, and Tom, three wonderful colleagues from Equinix. Hello all, how are you doing? Hey, go.
Who's going great. Today, excellent.
Awesome. Why don't we just do a quick round of introductions, get to know everybody, and then we'll get started for today. I pass the baton to you, Jeremy.
Excellent. I am Penguin, Jeremy to my mother-in-law. I am David's teammate at Equinix Metal, and I'm looking forward to. He said, "Pretend you know nothing about Kubernetes," and so this is not method acting. This should be a real easy one. I suppose a quick question: should I also be in the Discord, or is that where you'll be taunting us off screen?
You do not have to be on the Discord. No, it's all good. Everything will come through the YouTube comments, and my laughter comes in all places. So you're good.
Perfect.
Yes, and I'm Jason DeTiberis, also colleagues of these fine gentlemen at Equinix Metal. I've been active in the operational lifecycle management space in Kubernetes since 2015, and I'm looking forward to help walking Tom and Jeremy through fixing this cluster.
And I am Thom Crowe. I also work here on the developer relations advocacy team. And I wear as a badge of honor or shame, depending on where you are, that I have never been able to keep a Kubernetes cluster up and running. So I have a lot of experience on the working with broken clusters, very little experience fixing them. So I'm looking forward to what we can do today.
Is there such a thing as a working Kubernetes cluster? I'm not entirely sure.
That's my white whale.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you all for joining me today. I know this was a little bit short notice, but I really appreciate this. And I think this will be a whole lot of fun. So we're going to start by popping over my screen share. We have teleport, as we always use on Clustered. We have just the one cluster that is broken. My involvement today will merely be to click the connect button, which I think I do rather finely. I will zoom it in on the font. And if you could all do me a favor, join this active session. Give me an echo hello, not all at once. Well, I guess you can go for it if you want. I see one connection so far. Let's get two more. There we go. Thank you. 4 connections. I had never noticed this on Teleport before, but it has this lovely little number at the top left, and then you can hover it to see the names. Cool, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
There we go. Right. We have, hopefully, a still broken cluster. 50-50 at this point, I think. But I am not going to say any more just now. I'll let Jason share his thoughts and insights with you both. And Jeremy and Tom, best of luck.
Yeah, so from the spot that we're in right now, I think we have one of two options. One of them is we can try to access the application deployed on the cluster and see where things are from that state. Or since we're already at the command line, we can do a little inspection with kubectl and see what the state of the control plane is and try to see if we at least get a response back that way.
How would we check on if the app... I was voting option 1, but all right. What is our desired state? What should we be seeing if the application was working?
So ideally, I believe that we're looking at a WordPress application normally deployed on these clusters. although generally I don't think we actually expose it out to the internet. So you would actually have to proxy things through. So we probably need to start with the control plane anyway and see where things are there, since kubectl proxy is probably not going to work for us if our API server is not up already.
Okay.
So probably the easiest place to start is we can do something like kubectl version, which should, if the API server is up, actually tell us what version of the server we're connected to. And actually, in this case, we are going to have to set the kubeconfig either through the environment variable or the command line flag to connect to it. So in this case, if doing the environment variable, it should be kubeconfig, all capital letters, no spaces. And then we can do set it to etc kubernetes admin.conf, I think is the default one the default admin config.
Yep, that's right. I think that's true for all kubeadm clusters, right?
Yes. Oh, you didn't actually export that environment variable. I was going to say, I'd be a little surprised if Makai started you
if
out
that was
on
the trickery
hard mode
already.
For times like this where we have to go back and redo things, David, it'd be nice if we had some circus music.
I'll work
as we're
on
typing
that.
it back in. Nope.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be just conf, not config.
Oh, admin.conf.
Yeah. Ah, there we go. Okay. So we did get a response back from the server, and we can see that the server is running version 1.20.4. It matches our client version, which is what I would expect on a kubeadm-based cluster. Now, we can do, basically we can start with just looking to see what the state of pods are in the cluster. So if you did like a get pods dash capital A, that'll, or kubectl get pods dash capital A. That should tell us, what the current status is of the pods across all namespaces. And it looks like most everything is running except for that one pod in the default namespace. So what we can do here is we can actually do a kubectl describe on that pod, and that will give us additional information, whether it's events that have been generated for that pod or the status of the pod. It'll give us a nice summary of where things sit there. You'll have to do a -n to set the namespace there.
I think Tom was riding on top of me.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
I'll let you do it, Jeremy.
Let's do this classic pair programming style. So Jeremy, you type just now and I'll yell switch, and then we'll have Tom take over for a bit.
There we go.
All right, and you actually have to tell it the resource that we want. So you'll want to tell it a pod, and it doesn't matter what order you put the flags in with everything else. This is actually going to give you all of the pods, but there's only that one pod in that namespace, so it works effectively the same.
Okay, we've got state waiting.
All right. So we can see here that it could not actually create the pod sandbox for this. And we're seeing a connection reset by peer. So that's a fun one. The other thing we can see some various other information here. If we scroll up a little bit, We can see that there are no node selectors involved that we're dealing with here.
Is it one port off? Should 8080 and 8081 be the same or different?
Where are you seeing that?
Where's 8081, Jeremy? Oh, up there. It says port 8081 TCP, but the readiness is showing
Liveness
8080.
and readiness below are looking at
8080.
8080.
Yep. So I think that you have something there. Now we just got to figure out which one of the two is incorrect.
So let's talk about that. Right? You got to say something, Tom?
Well, I'm seeing up here as I went up higher, it's saying the connection to the server 8080 was refused. Did you specify the right host or port?
Okay.
But just thinking out loud. Okay. So what were you going to say, David?
Yeah. I think it was a keen eye spot in the 8081 and the 8080. But Jason, would that cause a container not to start?
I wouldn't necessarily expect that to cause the container not to start. I would expect that to cause more issues with after the container is already started, because the liveness and readiness probes don't kick in until after the pod has been created.
All right. So what are our likely candidates? So if we have a unable to create sandbox or a container not starting, what are the go-to things we should be checking?
Probably the first thing we'd probably want to see what node this is assigned to so that we can go ahead and inspect things on that node. Obviously, you might want to check to see if containerd is actually running. And if it is, are there any errors in there or in the kubelet logs trying to connect to containerd on that server?
Okay. So, Jeremy, Tom, do you know how to check which node pod was scheduled on?
Nope. Where's that?
So one of the places that I would probably look is if you actually do kubectl describe on the nodes, it'll show you what pods are scheduled on all of those nodes. All right.
You know what? I didn't know that. I had no idea you could describe a node and get a list of pods. That's awesome. This looks like ours.
Yep.
There we go. That's it.
So what's the node name for that node?
It is DVX-CW.
Yes.
Yep. So we should probably switch over to a teleport session on that node.
I have made it so.
DVX-CW. Okay.
There we go. We're in.
I think Tom. There we go. All right. I had to do a weird reload, but we're back.
All right. So probably first thing first, we can check to see if containerd is actually running on this host or not. You can do that either through like PS or systemd commands to check the status of the service.
So PS on its own will actually only list a few processes. You'll want to add some selectors to it. I tend to use PSAUX, which will list all processes.
There we go.
All right. So we can see container D is actually running.
Running.
Yeah. And we know the kubelet's running from knowing that, there's a node resource there and it at least tried to schedule it on this host. So we can take a look at either the kubelet logs first or the container D logs and try to see if there's anything in either of those saying why we're not seeing a running container.
Let's look at the container D logs. Where are those found?
All right, so we should be able to use journal cuddle -u. I think it's just container D, the service.
Wrong one.
And then probably give it a -L2 to make sure that we get the full line length.
You'll need to add a -- no pager. Or I think you can do LF. I can't remember.
Go for it.
Yeah, try LF. No, the -LF. Sorry.
Yep, just add an F to the L. Yep.
There you go.
Yep. Oh, failed to create container task. What are we getting here?
Just so that I feel less guilty, I did think the error message on this one would be a lot more explicit.
OCI runtime created failed. Failed to create the container.
It doesn't look like container D is going to give you much. I would maybe try Jason's other
Nope.
suggestion.
Kubelet logs would be where?
It'll be pretty much the same journal cuddle command, except instead of container D, we want kubelet.
All right, I'll yell switch now.
Okay. RPC error. We have failed RPC.
All right, I think I'll throw a hint in because the error message isn't what I expected it to be here. I only modified the deployment resource, so you can do this all from the control plane by taking a look at the YAML.
Yeah, that's where I was going to head next, because as far as the kubelet and container D, they're not really giving us much.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that, to be honest. I should have checked it, but I thought it would have been okay. Yeah, so I'll jump back over. You can close this tab. I think it's safe to say we'll work from the control plane.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, so let's go ahead and do a describe on the full deployment for that. So if we do a kubectl get deployments, let's see what that deployment is called so that we can go ahead and describe it.
We're doing a kubectl. What was that?
Get deployments.
Get deployments.
Oh, easy enough.
Deployment singular.
It helps if you spell it right.
I quite like deployments.
All right, and so we can just do a describe on that clustered deployment. So kubectl describe deployment clustered.
With a K.
Yep.
Yep, I see that. Got it.
Sorry, nobody can type when they're being watched. It is the rule.
It is a lot more nerve-wracking to type while you're live. This is insane.
Are you on a non-standard keyboard, Tom?
I'm on a standard keyboard. That's what makes it worse. I hear you on your mechanical keyboard, so you have an excuse, Jeremy. Where are we here? Okay. No, lively is ready.
Yeah, so you should probably just go through this top to bottom and look for anything out of the ordinary.
Okay, so we've got root.
There's
Cluster default.
is that correct? The correct URL for GitHub container registry there?
Yeah, that's all good.
The next thing is we can take a look at the port configurations. There's one in there that's kind of standing out to me as a little bit odd just looking at it.
The Liveness and Readiness URLs have no IP associated with them. Just a port.
Yeah, there's also some else that's standing out as a little bit odd to me too, as far as some of that container configuration.
What's that?
Host port 0?
Yeah.
0
What's-
TCP, yeah.
Host port 0 is okay. We're not
Okay.
actually exposing a host port. That's just what that looks like.
Okay. What is GHCRIO?
That said, I do think
Okay.
y'all were on to something with the port configuration and the liveness and readiness probes not matching up. So we probably need to bring those back into alignment.
Yeah, so I've spoken to the developer, and he expects the application to run in port 8080. Just put that there.
Okay, so we need to change the 8081 to 8080.
So
Yeah.
Noel has
Where-
also asked in the comments about the no IP in the probes. Yeah, this is just standard convention on liveness and readiness probes. The IP can be omitted. It runs against the pod itself, so only the port is necessary. The output always throws me as well. It is weird, but it is okay.
Okay.
So if we want to edit this thing in place, we can do kubectl edit, and that'll let us drop us into an editor to make changes to the resource. You'll want to tell it what resource, so in this case, a deployment, and the name of the resource. So in this case, clustered.
Clustered.
I think with an E, yeah.
There we go. Okay.
80. Looks good. Scroll down, either that or you can search for 8081.
Yep. I'm not seeing 8081.
You at the bottom?
You can search in Vim by pushing / and then type in your search term.
Oh, I see what it's doing.
Yep, there you go.
Classic typo.
Yep. There we go. Where did it go? Here we go.
There it is.
One.
Line 51, I think. Yep.
Shift and A to add to that line,
Shift.
and then push 1, and then hit escape. Yeah, sorry. Vim is the default editor. If you've not used it before, it is a pain in the ass. So just type 0, and then escape, and then : WQ. Yeah, sorry about that, Tom.
No worries.
How many ways are there to enter
I'm used to the
insert mode?
lies.
There are probably, I don't know, I use 4 or 5 regularly, but I'm sure there's many, many more. But Shift A to stay in the current line, J to jump down the next line, there's a whole bunch more. Or I
Make sure
on its
that's
own, but that's boring.
I think that took. Okay, so if we fixed that.
All right. So we can go ahead and take a look at those pods again to see if that pod does finish coming up. Because right now, the state of that deployment is showing 1 desired, 1 updated, 2 total, and 2 unavailable still.
That would be too harsh, Kevin.
What is it?
He said, don't tell anyone how to quit Vim.
I haven't touched Vim in a minute. Let's see.
Good for
throw
you.
the throw the whole computer away.
Did you run a get pods?
I think he ran the deployment again.
I did.
Describe on the deployment.
Pedal get pods.
All right, and we still see it's container
We're still down.
creating. So we'll want to go ahead and do another describe on that second instance there, the one with the age of 75 seconds.
This one here?
It doesn't show me your cursor, so we want the second one of the two. Yep.
44V22.
You need to describe pods.
Just the last part.
Pods. Yep.
And I need pods. Yep. Describe pods. Delete space.
You need the whole name. There you go.
Need a space. Okay, this is nerve-wracking.
It's all right. You get to swap again in a minute.
If you have not done this on Rawkode Live, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
That almost
Okay,
sounded sincere.
All right, and we're still seeing the same issue there.
Yeah.
However, one of the things that I'm thinking of is as we're setting up the pod sandbox, we need to interact with another pluggable component of the cluster to kind of make that pod sandbox. And that's going to be whatever CNI is deployed.
I have not touched the CNI.
You have not touched the CNI. So
No,
that is good.
it's really, you'll kick yourself, Jason. It's been staring you in the face.
All right, I would like to phone a friend, audience watching. Give us a hint if you see this.
I don't think the audience are normally pretty quick to phone in what they think it is, and no one has mentioned this yet. I'm really, really surprised. But in the interest of time, do you want me to throw something out there?
Is that your way of saying that not only are your guests, but your audience is also disappointing you greatly on this one, David?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, can you throw us a bone?
All right, I've highlighted. Oh, you might not be able to see the screen share.
Yeah, I see the share. Limits CPU 5.
Oh, yes.
So I really expected the error message to complain about the limits, but
yeah,
I was disappointed.
So we probably want more than 1 MB of memory for our pod.
I have so much respect for you for actually calling it a MB and not, mixing up SI and non-SI standards.
All right, so we probably want to go in and re-edit that deployment and increase that memory count a little bit.
Which the full deployment here?
Yep.
After this command, it's swappy time again.
Nope.
The deployment's just called clustered. That's the pod.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the pod. I'm not going to do the full thing. And Jeremy, you're up.
All right. We are going back down
Let's do 2 MB. We'll just keep adding a MB until it works.
So should we talk about resource requests and limits? Will we give a quick TLDR on that?
Yeah, what do you need to get a Kubernetes cluster up and running? What should we have here as a minimum?
So that's highly going to depend on your application. And underneath the resources, you have 2 different kind of types of resource limits that you have the limits, and then you have the requests. The requests are used to make scheduling decisions to say, where should I schedule this pod based on how much memory I'm going to request from it. Limits actually put actual kind of guard barriers. It will not let the application use anymore. It'll define some C groups on the host and limit the amount of memory that you have specifically to what you set in the limits.
So this is what'll keep me from. So this is what'll keep me from deploying a 300 gigabyte server somewhere for my cluster, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is what allows you to basically define, how much over provisioning you want in your cluster and, avoid, too much over provisioning for those applications. And generally for Kubernetes clusters, you disable swap on the host. So when things do actually run out of physical memory on the host, you're looking specifically at kills rather than thrashing swap when those things go bad. So you really want to make sure that when you're defining your applications, you want to try to match your requests and limits closely to what the application generally uses. And you can, if sometimes it'll surge a little bit, you can set the limits a little bit higher than the requests, that sort of thing. In this case, we're talking about a WordPress application, I believe, or is this a WordPress application or is this something else?
Yeah, it's just a small Rust binary. I mean, we could either remove the limits altogether, or you can throw it up to, 1 CPU and 100 mega RAM or something like that. That's probably over provisioning, but they also don't need to be set. You can set that to 500 or 1000, whatever you fancy. And the way to work this out is a question I think we all probably get a lot is, how do I set limits in this? Continuous profile, good metrics, all of that. Just really, really start to understand your application under multiple scenarios too, low load, high load, etc.
Yep, and there's things like the vertical autoscaler that you can use to get a baseline for what your application uses. It'll automatically increase those limits for you as use kind of increases on the application.
We're running. David, did we do the thing?
I'll be honest, I did not expect that to be running after that. So clearly one of the other breaks is not really panned out, but that's okay. But if you can do a get pods on the kube system namespace, we can maybe take a look at what should have happened. There are more things to fix, don't worry.
Kubectl.
Nope, kubectl.
And
Cuddle.
I can see
Didn't we swap
Noel
back?
in the chat.
Oh, this isn't my turn anyway. This is your turn, Jeremy. Sorry.
To follow up on the profiling discussion, Noel in the chat is mentioning that there was a talk at KubeCon talking about using the VPA to profile applications.
Nice.
Yep, there we go.
Oh, okay. Sorry, which namespace am I?
Kube system namespace, please. Kube-system. That's where all of the Kubernetes control plane stuff runs. I think I'm about to learn something else today that I didn't know. Yeah. You see anything weird here?
Ah. Our scheduler is not happy right now.
But we did get a scheduled pod.
We did.
It's running, but it's not ready.
Yes. So we can go ahead and do a describe on that and see what's going on there. And then in this case, we'll also have to specify the namespace like we did above. So -n kube-system. And then you'll probably want to copy and paste because we haven't configured tab completion on this host.
So I do have a question. If the scheduler is not working, how did it schedule?
So I didn't expect the scheduler to really respond to any requests because it wouldn't end up in a service endpoint, but that was really naive of me, and I now understand that that's stupid because it's a controller that's actually listening to the Kubernetes API server. So the thing I did is mildly amusing at best, but completely pointless and clustered at worst. Because there's only one scheduler. So anyway, it doesn't matter. You can fix it or not fix it. It's up to you. It might be interesting to look at what I changed.
All right, describe pod.
Just scroll up, scroll down.
Let's go up.
So, and because it's showing that it's not ready, that tells us that the readiness probe is not firing. And if we look at the Liveness probe definition there, we can see that there are indeed failures. And we can also compare the actual command line used for it to that probe configuration.
Anything jump out at you, Jeremy or Tom?
Not just yet.
So there's a flag at the end of the defined command there that is standing out to me. So if we're looking just a little bit up of where Makai has highlighted on his screen, we see the tail end of the command line arguments there.
Is
Can you
that
scroll up a little bit more?
So you've got port 0 there, but also port 10259 as the for liveness and startup.
Yeah.
I haven't modified
no.
ports.
Okay.
Not out of.
Yeah, that port 0 is another thing that always confuses me on Klustered, but perfectly legal.
Oh, yes, that's probably, is that disabling the HTTP endpoint for it?
I don't recall, but let's say that sounds like a pretty good shout. Again, it's simpler than user thinking about it. Anyone in chat see the thing? Oh, you're going to kick yourselves again.
Hold on. I'm not
It's
getting up yet.
the pressure though when you got people watching you and you're looking at it like. But I promise you, I have kept all of these superficial breaks. You see any difference between the liveness probe and the startup probe?
Oh, there's a nice long delay in there.
That
50,000 second delay.
Do you know how many hours 50,000 seconds is? 13.
Okay, that felt too obvious though.
I have kept the breaks simple, and I love that what this is showing is like even the simple things are so easy to overlook when you're trying to fix something. Like but yeah, there you go. So how do we fix the scheduler, Jason? What's different about that to other workloads on the cluster?
So obviously, what we're looking at here is the static pod mirror manifest. So the control plane components on a kubeadm based cluster are deployed via static manifests, and if we actually tried to edit them through the API, they would not actually have any effect. So we'd actually want to look on disk at the configuration here, and that's basically going to be in the etc Kubernetes manifest directory by default. So assuming that Makai hasn't thrown us a curveball and modified where the manifests are, that's where we want to look for the kube scheduler configuration there.
I have not done that, I promise. Yeah, so a lot of the comments there we're pointing to the port 0 as well, but that is a red herring.
And that's one of the fun things because Kubernetes now is, let's see, it's 2021, originally started in 2014, the project. So we have a little bit of legacy now. So every once in a while, there are a lot of command line flags that need to be set in kind of awkward ways to kind of deal with that legacy. So you do end up with some of those things that look weird, but are actually perfectly fine.
Yep. And it's only through trial, error, and experience that you actually pick up on a lot of those. Like, even prior to Clustered, I had no idea about all these random port zeros and stuff.
Yeah.
Nor should you.
I was going to use Vom to edit it to see if that was. It jumped right to the place, so I assumed
nice.
that was the.
Hey, that's cool.
Vim has been useful for that before on Clustered, I gotta say.
Yeah,
5 is a good number.
I assume there's a way to erase your most recent edited line.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably some Vim cache file I could blow away, but yeah, you can save that 5, 10, anything. It's all good. Just save it, and it should be good. There you go. 1 bug fixed. So get pods is your North Star here. I'd keep focusing on that.
Yeah.
So that should be on. You should see that go to ready and what did you say the delay to 10 seconds? Yeah, just a little over
10
that.
seconds.
And so you can actually do a get pods, add a -w to the end of that. That would actually watch the event
We're
log.
watching it? Yeah.
And it depends on how many. I think it was 3. So when it gets to 30 seconds, we should see a 1 of 1. And after this is healthy, we'll swap back to Tom, please.
No, thank you.
Noel is enjoying it. The simple things that get overlooked. Yeah, definitely. It's easy to overlook the simple things. Come on, scheduler. We don't have to wait on it. As we found out, the break didn't even work anyway because the scheduler continues to act as a scheduler even when it's not ready. So we can just do a get pods and maybe move on just now. No, there are no honks or rickrolls. I was taking it easy on this one. All right.
Yeah.
Things are looking
All right.
good.
We look like we're running, right?
Do we want to go ahead and run that again for all namespaces and see where everything else is sitting to? So get pods -A.
Yep. Everything is
And
running.
Everything
is running. Everything is ready. Yep.
Woohoo. You want me to try a port forward from my local machine?
Yeah, let's give that a shot and check on the status of that application.
Newcomers, export, okay, get pods.
He's a little faster than we are, Jeremy.
Well, it's that auto completing there.
Exactly. All right, so our application. Oh.
Uh-oh. But we fixed the thing.
You fixed one thing.
Could you tell your browser? Could you tell your browser that it should be working and ask to try harder?
It's the part of a horror movie where everyone's dancing around the fire, celebrating while a murky figure emerges from the lake and creeps up onto the dock.
Khalid thinks it seems fine. My browser doesn't seem to think it's fine. If we pop over, we're not getting any error messages, so we are getting successfully a request to our clustered pod. However, it would seem that we are not getting a response from our clustered pod. I'm not sure what the timeout is supposed to be here. You will see a connection to a database timing out when it eventually lands.
And you are talking directly to the pod here, so we don't have to look too deeply into things like the service networking and that sort of thing. So we can definitely just start looking directly at the pod. If we're expecting it to talk to a database, we probably want to figure out where that database is supposed to be so that we can, actually talk to it. One of the things standing out to me is that I didn't see any pods related to a database.
David, are we supposed to have a database?
I would run control something. I mean, how does it speak to a database?
That's not a command, David.
I'm going to have to tweak the timeout on my Rust application. Really, you should have an error message right now saying it's trying to speak to something called Postgres. So there's your queue.
Okay.
There's your queue.
Okay.
So one of the things we can look at here is we can look at, what types of resources would we use to even deploy a database? So we can look to see if there's any stateful sets defined in the cluster. So just like a kubectl get stateful set.
Postgres is not ready.
Yeah. So we can do the same thing that we did with the previous ones. We can run describe on there and see what type of data it gives us there. And you'll need to tell it what you want to describe. So in this case, a stateful set.
Stateful set. Okay.
All right. And one of the things that I noticed is it wasn't even trying to deploy a pod here. Otherwise, we would have seen that when we were doing the pod output. So if we look at the configuration of this, there's some that stands out to me immediately that explains why we weren't seeing any type of pod creation.
Yeah, please don't write down my password. I use this for everything.
I was going to say, besides the terribly weak password?
It seems that we've desired 0 replicas, which seems like exactly what we've got.
Yes.
Yep.
So what
It's
we can do is
serverless.
we can database list.
Database list.
We can actually use the kubectl scale command here to go ahead and change that. Alternatively, you could just do an edit on that resource and change it like we did before. But since stateful sets
Replica
expose
10,000?
the scale sub resource, we can just do kubectl scale. We're gonna, and if you just hit enter there, it'll help guide us through what we need to do. So let actually do kubectl scale -- help, and that'll give us. And I think in this case, we just tell it what we want to scale. Yeah. So we'll want to specify that -- replicas, and we probably don't want to go higher than 1 here. I don't know if this.
There's no PVCs being used. All the data is loaded through it in a container. You can scale it to wherever you wish. it'll be fine.
Yep, replicas, however many, 3, 10, whatever, stateful
Let's
set /
And that says swappy time again, please.
Anything else?
And
We good?
you want / Postgres QL.
no space, and probably singular instead of plural.
Set.
Yep, /.
So you can use the singular, the plural, or the short versions across all of these commands as well.
Okay.
But yeah, best to pick one and stick to it.
There's an extra E in there, it looks like.
Oh, there it is. Postgres.
Woohoo!
Failed.
All right. So we take a look at those. Take a look at that again. We should see it's created a pod.
Yep, there we go. Create pod, stateful, successful.
Now we're just waiting to see if the liveness and readiness probes finish up.
I'd probably run a get pods or something.
Yeah.
Great tip, whoever's typing, but Control R and then type part of a command will bring it front and center for you.
All right, so it looks like those Postgres pods are in a good state now, so we can potentially go back and try that application again.
And David, that'll be hitting Command R. We'll do that for you.
No, so if you do Control R and then type pods. There you go. And then hit return, you get your command. So that's still timing out.
I meant
so,
nope, but so it's not going to work if you refresh.
So we've got. Oh, look at your clustered pod.
Up at the top there, MGTPW,
Right that one's not
unready,
starting.
unready restarted 5 times.
Yep. So one of the things we can do here is we can actually look at the logs for that clustered pod and see.
I'm really sorry. There's no log output.
There's no log out.
Just because it's a really simple application. I feel terrible.
Who built this application?
You want to just I would just dive
We
straight
can only
into
do so much with what we're given here, David.
just do a we've done a lot of describes. Do a get pod -o YAML and take a look at the definition. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember what the last break in that file is. So
Get pod YAML.
Get pod, the name of the pod. So just copy and paste the clustered one in, and then do a -o YAML, which will output the spec. And a great tip from the audience there as well. Aliasing kubecontrol to K is a good time saver.
Yeah.
Restart count 6 files.
Really, I need to start upgrading these clusters to 121 so we don't get all the managed fields.
Huh. Let us see.
Oh, okay, you broke it yourselves. That wasn't me. The CPU should be 1000. Yeah, it wasn't me. Good. I couldn't remember what the other break was there. Yeah, you just want to do a kubecontrol edit on that. Who's got the keys?
That was Tom most recently.
Okay.
Oh, it's your turn, Jeremy. Sorry, I'll stop talking. Go ahead. Hands off.
Right, we're almost there. Come on, team. So we want to do a kubecontrol edit deployment clustered.
Ugh. Is someone firing keystrokes in there?
Oh, I'm judging by Tom's laughter. Yes.
You can't trip me while I'm crawling.
And while we're in here, let's fix one more thing that I don't think we need to worry about. But let's search for policy. I did modify the image pull policy. Maybe Jason will be so kind as to tell us why that was such a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, so the image pull policy, basically, it depends on how you're validating and deploying your containers that you want to use in the environments. So right now, that one being set to never means that basically it will never try to pull down the pod onto the host as part of bringing up that pod. It'll expect that that container has already been pulled onto the host by some other process. Generally, you want it to set at least to if not present, so that when the pod is scheduled, it'll pull that container image if it isn't already on the host. In some cases, some people set it to always, but that has some other implications too, because if you're relying on the behavior of always, that means you're modifying the tags that you're using for images, and that could lead to other potential issues there too. So it doesn't really matter what we set it to for this case, but
go up, Jeremy. Up.
Which line?
CPU one, up 2 more. Yeah.
CPU
down
equals
2
1,
more.
down 2, down 3, right there.
It should be 1000. So one CPU actually means 1 millicore of a CPU. Although I'm surprised that's a string. Is that supposed to be a string?
There's a few fields in Kubernetes that are defined as int or string, and will take either an integer or a string as content. So I expect that's probably what we're dealing with here for the CPU limits.
All right. So that should, assuming your container gets scheduled on the original node where the image is pulled, you should be okay. And it's pending, so you got really unlucky there, and you're going to have to modify the image pull policy, I'm afraid.
Yep.
Where's that?
Just up into the
Sim
edit.
file?
Yeah.
So you can just search for never here, and for simplicity, just replace it with always.
With a capital N.
Yeah.
Are you on your ergodox today, Jeremy?
Yes. That's not, does that, what jumps me there? That jumps me there. Right.
So always and if not present, always is probably easier for now. Perfect. Okay, there's one more thing in order to fix our application. And hopefully just pulling on a new node. It should be harmless. You can do watch again if you want.
I dropped the -a here because just getting things in the default namespace will make the output a little bit clearer.
Pending is worrying me, to be honest. Mind if I type for a second?
Go for it.
Is that breaking the rules? Are we allowed to do that?
Well, I mean, it's not a break that I brought, so I think it's all right. Oh.
Okay.
And there's me using my alias. Sorry. So I think our limits are just
insufficient CPU.
1K? There we go. So that, I think that was that string conversion thing, and then Go's changed it to a 1K. They must be using like string to OI or whatever that function is.
Yeah.
So the 100M just is explicitly saying one CPU, 1000 millicores. That's weird. I've never seen that before. Hey, now you're all teaching me stuff as well. That's awesome. All right, you got your pod back. You want me to do a port forward?
Can we check, see if it's working?
Of course. Get pods. This one. Okay. Now it's complaining, and I'm sure we'll get a timeout in hopefully just a few seconds, but it can't reach the Postgres service. You'll need to debug that. It's the last thing, I swear.
Well, so if it can't reach the Postgres service, some of the things that we can look at are, how's it trying to reach the Postgres service? How's the application configured to talk to the database? And based on that, we may need to look at the actual service that's fronting the stateful set if there is one.
I think that's a good idea.
So,
That was subtle.
so we can go ahead and just do a kubectl get services here and see what's defined as far as services.
Who's up now? Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy, go on.
I may need to refresh my teleport. You should hear bangy, clicky.
All right, Tom, you're up.
And no.
All right.
So kubecontrol get SVC or get services.
Oh, whoa, what just happened?
You
could
just
see
have
it.
to reload sometimes when someone joins. It gets a little confusing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could see it, but not control it.
Secure
Oh,
kube control mode. I like it.
All
SVC.
of the cuddles.
SBC. Okay. There we go.
Cubic TLS. Yeah.
So we do have a Postgres service. I'll let Jason.
It
guide
is
us.
running.
Yep. So we can
But-
go ahead and.
I'm curious, Jason. Do you mind if I jump in for a second?
Yep.
Like based on all of the kube control stuff we've been doing so far, Jeremy and Tom, right? We've done a get service. What do you think's next?
Probably describe that service.
Describe that service.
Good call. I was just curious if, hopefully if things were landing.
Oh.
If there's Sid jumping in to describe it.
One of the other things I was going to say too is a lot of the commands also have a wide mode. So if you do like a -o wide, sometimes it'll give you more detail on that get as well.
Yeah, it's a great tip too. You should do that as well. Like the kube control thing, as you know, it's a REST-like client. Get, describe, edit. These things are just the staples of all Kubernetes interactions, at least through kube control anyway.
So what's wrong with that?
It's get
Jason,
service dash o wait.
Yeah, it works for the get,
get-
not for describe.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Oh,
You
nope.
said delete, describe.
Delete describe. Yes. Okay. Boom. Okay.
All right.
So let's see, looking at that Postgres service, we can see that it's the type of cluster IP. That makes sense. We have an app equals Postgres for the selector. It has an IP. And if we look at the port, and this is where it's been a while since I dealt with Postgres. I don't quite remember if it listens on TCP. It's supposed to listen on TCP in addition to UDP, or if it's just a UDP service.
Good catch.
So we need both?
No, TCP.
Just TCP. Okay.
Yep. So
At all.
Edit.
And then it's
You got the resource type first.
Edit the service.
here we go. Protocol. Go down.
Right, you're almost there. You'll probably want to describe your service again without a dash o wait. So this is the output that's the most important.
all right. And if you look at that service above, the Kubernetes service, you can see that there are some endpoints defined for that one. And we don't have any endpoints currently for the Postgres service. And the way that the service maps pods is it actually looks for that label selector that's defined. So in this case, app equals Postgres. So one of the
Needs
things
to
we can
be
do, we can look at that Postgres stateful set and see to make sure that it has that that label actually set on it.
But we don't. So since that's not set, no endpoints from Noel. Noel.
Well, yeah, the only thing you know right now is there's no endpoints, and Jason
Yeah.
has given you some great advice that endpoints are connected to selectors. So we probably want to check that this selector exists on our deployment. The app equals Postgres. So if you describe our cluster deployment, yeah, the audience are jumping in with the endpoints and label check too. I think this bites everybody at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
Deployment clustered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did consider calling the series Custard, but it wasn't as catchy. All right. So
And the important part here is what we're going to want to look at is the actual pod template, not necessarily the labels on the deployment itself. So underneath the pod template, actually, this is the clustered deployment. We want to look at the Postgres deployment. Oh,
Yes.
sorry, not deployment, stateful set. So if we look at that pod template, labels app equals PostgreSQL, and I think the service was for Postgres, not for PostgreSQL.
Ah, Postgres.
clumsy fingers. Sorry, all.
I don't believe you're sorry. Sorry.
So in
Sorry's
this
about
case,
the
matter-
works, and you would do it again.
Does it matter, Jason, which one we change?
so it shouldn't matter. The one thing, the stateful set, I don't think a stateful set does it have a label selector for the pods that it manages? I do not think
Yeah, I would
so.
edit the service just in case. It's more lightweight.
Yeah.
I think even potentially the template labels as well are immutable on deployments and stateful sets. I don't even remember if those can be changed.
You want no,
No,
Oops.
close.
you don't need deployment there. You just want the service.
The service is called Postgres.
Yeah, that was the
I've
typo.
got the typo there. And an extra space. Let's edit that. And let's find our label.
And it's actually the selector.
Oh, selector
Yeah,
right
down
there.
there.
Okay, I see it. Postgres, let's change that to QL. Just go back.
You want to describe that service again. Yep.
There should be an L in cuddle.
Yep.
I'm going to add documentation and a code of conduct to this show where you have to pronounce it kubecontrol or you're not invited back. I'm just
All right. So now we do have endpoints.
Good job.
So assuming the
Now
application
can we
is
test it?
configured correctly to talk to the service, it should be able to.
Ta-da! We fixed it.
Ah.
Video doesn't
Like
work in
for your limit.
Firefox. I keep meaning to re-encode it, but we are getting our wonderful cloud native quotes at the top of our service, so
Predicted.
it's all good. It is
Your
working.
limits.
Good
And
job.
Sure enough, there.
Yay!
Thank you, Duffy's mom.
Awesome work.
I need a nap.
I'm just glad for this time I wasn't having to type live on air.
Come fix a cluster, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
Well, I mean, let's focus on right. Did you learn a little Kubernetes today? I hope that's coming through. I think a lot of these breaks are things that just happen day in and day out in Kubernetes. They're so easy
Yeah.
to make. Labels, selectors being wrong, ports being mismatched, protocol, and just really simple things that can really trip people up. I hope this helped build a little bit of familiarity with kube control. Jason did a great job of guiding you through all of that, and I think you both asked a lot of really good questions throughout that as well. And hopefully we just provide some really good fundamental Kubernetes knowledge. So thank you for joining me all today. I really enjoyed watching you suffer a little bit, but also
was glad to be here, and also easily illustrates the use of a second set of eyes, even if you don't know what the problem is. The frequently phone a friend is and bounce something off instead of bang your head on it by yourself.
I am now only referring to this as sadism with David.
I'm going to move the comments so I stop getting my eyes covered up.
So no, that was fun. Thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun. Nerve-wracking, but it's so much fun. And Jason, thank you for joining us. This would have been a 6 hours later. I'd still be where I was when I started. So thank you for your help.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you all next week. Thanks.
Bye, all.